You know, he could hang from my hair. Look, I don't even have him holding him.
For 30 years, Johnny Carson was the undisputed king of late-night television. Calm, cool, and always in perfect control. He never lost his cool, or so we thought. But behind that legendary smile and sharp wit, there were moments when America's most beloved host completely snapped. From a monkey urinating on his head, to nearly being attacked by a panther, to being brutally betrayed by his own protégé, these are the rare times Johnny Carson lost his temper on live television. Some moments were hilarious, some were shocking, and a few were downright explosive. Today on Hollywood Files, we're counting down the 10 most insane moments when Johnny Carson could no longer hold it together. If you want to see what really happened when the king of composure finally broke, make sure to hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications right now. Let's dive in. 1. The monkey that peed on Johnny's head, August 4th, 1977. It was supposed to be a cute, harmless segment. Joan and Barry from the San Diego Zoo had brought a tiny pygmy monkey named Mo onto The Tonight Show. During rehearsal, Mo was an angel, clinging sweetly to Joan's sleeve like a living teddy bear. Johnny, who loved animals but valued his dignity even more, felt perfectly safe. He even joked with the crew, "This one looks friendly." But live television has a cruel sense of humor. The moment the cameras went live and the bright studio lights hit, something in Mo's tiny monkey brain flipped. Maybe Johnny's perfectly styled silver hair looked like a shiny branch. Maybe it looked like dinner. Whatever it was, Mo let out a high-pitched squeal of pure monkey joy and launched himself like a furry missile straight onto Johnny's head. Not near his head, right on top of it. The audience exploded with laughter as Mo wrapped his little arms and legs around Johnny's famous hairstyle, the one that took 20 minutes and a lot of hairspray every night. Johnny froze for half a second, eyes wide in pure shock. Then came the worst part. A warm stream started dripping down Johnny's forehead, over his ear, and straight into his collar. Yes, Mo was peeing on Johnny Carson's head, live on national television. Johnny, ever the professional, tried desperately to keep his cool. With a monkey perched on his head like a living hat, he forced a smile and said, "I can't sit here and talk to people with an animal on my head." The audience roared even louder. Johnny reached up carefully, trying to pry Mo off without getting bitten, while warm monkey urine continued to trickle down his neck. He looked equal parts horrified and disgusted. During the commercial break, all hell broke loose backstage. Johnny practically sprinted to his dressing room, still wearing a suit jacket. The crew later found him standing under the emergency shower, fully clothed, scrubbing his scalp like he was trying to remove a traumatic memory. He was muttering under his breath about dignified television and professional standards. When he finally returned to the stage with freshly blow-dried hair and a brand new shirt, he acted like nothing had happened. That was pure Johnny Carson, the ultimate showman. But afterward, oh, there was hell to pay. Johnny called an emergency meeting with the producers and delivered one of the most legendary lines in Tonight Show history. "From now on, no primates above shoulder height, period." NBC even jokingly installed a small warning sign near the studio door. "Caution, Johnny's hair is not a branch." Mo the monkey was quietly retired from television appearances forever. And Johnny, he never forgot that night. For years afterward, whenever someone brought up animals on the show, he'd give them a deadpan stare and say, "Just remember what happened to my hair in '77. If you think that was wild, just wait until you see what happened with the Panther. But before we continue, if you're enjoying these crazy behind-the-scenes stories, make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications. We've got plenty more where this came from. 2. The Panther that almost ended Johnny Carson. April 1986. Johnny Carson was a naturally curious man. That curiosity usually served him well, except on the night it nearly got him killed. It was a seemingly normal episode of The Tonight Show. The guest segment featured animal trainer Ron Shannon and a young mountain lion, also known as a cougar. During rehearsal, the big cat appeared calm and well-behaved. Shannon assured everyone backstage, "He's perfectly safe, no worries at all." Johnny, being Johnny, couldn't resist. During the commercial break, while the crew was setting up the heavy steel cage under the bright studio lights, Johnny wandered over for a closer look. He wasn't supposed to. The animal handlers had strict instructions to keep guests away from the cage until airtime. But Johnny, with that signature boyish curiosity, leaned in anyway. He got within 2 feet of the bars. The mountain lion had been lying down quietly. But the moment Johnny's face came into view, its entire demeanor changed. Its yellow eyes locked onto him like a predator calculating distance. The muscles in its powerful shoulders tensed. Ron Shannon whispered nervously, "Johnny, maybe you should step back." Too late. In a split second, the Panther exploded. It lunged forward with terrifying speed, smashing against the steel bars with a deafening roar that echoed through Studio 6B. Its massive paw shot through the gap, claws fully extended, missing Johnny's face by mere inches. Johnny didn't just step back. He launched himself backward in pure terror. His feet flew out from under him, and he crashed hard onto the studio floor, legs in the air, tie flipped over his shoulder, dignity completely gone. For one brief, unforgettable moment, America's coolest late-night host looked like a man who had just seen death staring back at him. The audience gasped in shock. The crew froze. Even Ed McMahon went silent. Johnny scrambled to his feet, heart pounding, face pale. He straightened his tie with shaking hands, forced a nervous laugh, and delivered one of his classic save-the-moment lines. "Well, I just lost 9 lives." The audience erupted in relieved laughter, but those who were watching closely could see it. Johnny's hands were still trembling as he picked up his cue cards. This wasn't staged. This was genuine fear. After the show, Johnny was uncharacteristically quiet. He later told his producer, Fred de Cordova, that for a split second, he truly believed the Panther was going to rip his face off on national television. As a result, the famous Carson rule was born that very night. No large predator within 3 feet of the desk. The producers even measured and taped the exact distance on the studio floor. And here's the funny part. Johnny absolutely hated when this clip was replayed on blooper specials. Every time it showed up, he would fire off a memo demanding they retire the footage. He once joked darkly, "If I wanted to be attacked by a wild animal, I would have stayed in Nebraska." From that day forward, Johnny kept a respectful distance from any animal bigger than a house cat. Make sure to hit subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss what happens next. 3. Madonna's seductive takeover of Johnny's desk. By 1987, Madonna was already the biggest pop star on the planet, bold, provocative, and completely fearless. When she appeared on The Tonight Show, she didn't just walk onto the stage, she took it over. Instead of sitting in the guest chair like every other celebrity, Madonna casually perched herself right on the edge of Johnny Carson's desk. She was wearing a revealing black bustier with lace gloves, exuding pure confidence. Johnny, ever the gentleman, leaned back slightly, clearly caught off guard. What followed was one of the most uncomfortable and memorable interviews in Tonight Show history. Madonna looked Johnny straight in the eyes and said with a mischievous smile, "Johnny, I chose you for my first appearance because they say you're gentle." The audience went wild. Johnny's ears turned bright red under the studio lights. She then picked up his cue cards and began fanning herself. A moment later, she licked her index finger, slowly touched Johnny's coffee mug, and whispered, "Too hot." Johnny froze. His eyes darted toward the control booth, silently begging for help. The producers were already getting frantic calls from the Standards and Practices department, Madonna continued pushing boundaries. She asked Johnny what he would call a certain piece of lingerie if he were buying it for someone. When he tried to steer the conversation back to her music and world tour, she shot back playfully, "Tour? Let's talk about your fantasy instead." The crowd was roaring with laughter, but Johnny was visibly uncomfortable. He kept his famous cool as best he could, offering polite chuckles while desperately trying to regain control of the interview. Behind the scenes, the tension was high. The producers were sweating, worried the segment might cross the line. After the show, Johnny walked straight to his producer, Fred de Cordova, and said with a sigh, "Book me a nun tomorrow." He later made it clear he had no interest in inviting Madonna back for a second appearance. While the ratings for that episode were through the roof, Johnny felt the interview had gone too far into uncomfortable territory for his taste. It remains one of the most talked about moments in Tonight Show history, a perfect example of two entertainment legends from completely different generations clashing in real time. 4. The baby elephant that turned the studio into a disaster zone, mid-1970s. Baby elephants look incredibly cute on television. They're small, playful, and usually bring big laughs. But as Johnny Carson learned the hard way, even the cutest animals can create absolute chaos. During one evening segment, an animal trainer brought out an adorable baby elephant. The audience immediately started awing at the sight. The little elephant stood under the bright studio lights, looking innocent and charming. Then the lights and the loud applause spooked her. What happened next became legend. The baby elephant suddenly lifted her tail and released a massive, steaming pile right in the middle of the studio floor. The sound was loud enough to echo through the studio. Within seconds, a very strong, unmistakable smell began spreading across the stage. Johnny's face instantly changed. He covered his nose with his hand, leaned back in his chair, and tried to wave the odor away from himself and toward Ed McMahon. With a strained smile, he quipped, "Ed ordered takeout." The audience laughed, but the situation was getting worse. Stagehands rushed in with buckets and mops. But in their hurry, one of them slipped in the mess. The brown sludge began spreading slowly across the polished, like a slow-moving disaster. Johnny, trying to maintain his composure, quietly moved his chair a few feet upstage to escape the growing aroma. The cameras smartly stayed in tight shots, but wide-angle footage later leaked showing just how bad it really was. After the segment ended, Johnny was not amused. He told his longtime producer, "I like a good story, but I don't need it steaming under my chair." As a direct result of this incident, new rules were immediately put in place. Plastic sheeting was required for all future large animal segments, and the janitorial crew received double hazard pay whenever animals appeared. Johnny Carson may have turned the moment into comedy on air, but behind the scenes, he made sure it would never happen again. 5. Chevy Chase acts like he owns the show, 1978. In 1978, Chevy Chase was riding high on his success from Saturday Night Live. He walked onto the Tonight Show stage with the arrogance of someone who believed he was the next big thing in comedy, and he treated Johnny Carson like he was yesterday's news. Instead of sitting down politely, Chase slapped Johnny's desk and shouted, "How you doing, America?" as if he were the host. From that moment, the tone was set. Chase didn't answer Johnny's questions. He launched into long, self-centered monologues about his own greatness, mocked Johnny's tie, and constantly played to the camera. The disrespect reached its peak when Chase leaned over and slapped Johnny hard on the shoulder while laughing at his own joke. The studio fell into an awkward silence. Johnny Carson, who rarely showed anger on air, turned ice cold. He looked directly at Chase and delivered one of the most famous lines in Tonight Show history with a dangerously calm voice, "Touch me again, and you'll be hosting alone." The audience laughed nervously, thinking it was part of the bit. It wasn't. Johnny was dead serious. Chevy Chase tried to laugh it off, but the damage was done. The rest of the interview was painfully awkward. Johnny's famous pencil tapping, bing, his telltale sign of irritation, sounded like machine gun fire that night. After the show, Johnny skipped his usual polite thank you in the green room. Instead, he turned to his talent coordinator and asked coldly, "Did he even rehearse?" When the answer was no, Johnny made his decision. From that night forward, Chevy Chase was permanently banned from The Tonight Show. For the entire remaining run of Johnny's tenure, Chase's name never appeared on the guest list again. Johnny later told friends, "I like guests who share the ball, not steal it." He viewed Chase's behavior not just as rude, but as a direct challenge to the show's authority and respect. This incident sent a clear message throughout Hollywood. You could joke with Johnny, but you could not disrespect him on his own stage. 6. Charles Grodin's hostile on-air attack, 1982. Charles Grodin was known for his dry, deadpan style that often walked the line between comedy and genuine confrontation. But his 1982 appearance crossed that line completely. While promoting his book, Grodin immediately began complaining on air about how NBC treated authors. He then turned his attention to Johnny, accusing him of being disinterested and mocking the way Johnny spoke. Grodin leaned forward and did an exaggerated impression of Johnny's soft voice, saying, "You talk very softly. I don't know why." He continued, "You don't really care what I have to say, do you? Honestly." Johnny's expression changed instantly. The warm, charming host disappeared. In its place was a visibly irritated Johnny Carson. With a cold, steady voice, Johnny fired back, "You know what, Charles? What do you care about in life? Do you actually care about anything?" The exchange grew increasingly tense. Grodin kept pushing, questioning Johnny's sincerity. Johnny, usually the master of deflection, engaged directly, something he almost never did. By the end of the segment, the atmosphere was thick with discomfort. The handshake at the end looked forced and icy. After the show, Johnny was genuinely angry. He told his producers he felt Grodin had been disrespectful and hostile. While he didn't issue a full ban, he significantly reduced the number of future invitations for Grodin. Johnny later commented privately that there was a difference between clever banter and outright rudeness. In his view, Grodin had crossed that line. This confrontation remains one of the most awkward and tense interviews in Tonight Show history, a rare moment when Johnny Carson allowed his irritation to show clearly on national television. 7. The Joan Rivers Betrayal, April 1986. Of all the painful moments in Johnny Carson's career, none hurt him more deeply than the betrayal by Joan Rivers. Joan wasn't just a frequent guest. She was Johnny's protégé and someone he treated like a daughter. He had coached her, shared his secrets, and proudly let her guest host the show many times. Their relationship was genuinely close and affectionate. Then, in April 1986, Joan secretly signed a contract with Fox to host her own late-night show, in the exact same time slot as The Tonight Show. The news broke while Johnny was taping. When Ed McMahon handed him the Variety newspaper with the headline, "Rivers Defects to Fox," Johnny went pale. He read it once, then read it again in stunned silence. For Johnny, this wasn't just business. It felt like a knife in the back from family. That night, he performed the show on autopilot. He removed every Joan Rivers joke from his monologue. Backstage, he was quiet and visibly hurt. He told his longtime producer, "She was my successor in spirit, and she sold that for a neon backdrop." Johnny's reaction was swift and decisive. He ordered every clip of Joan Rivers removed from the show's archives. He banned her from ever appearing on The Tonight Show again. Their friendship ended that day, permanently. Joan tried to apologize for years. She sent letters, gifts, and even a painting of Johnny's beloved Nebraska farmhouse. Every single one was marked "Return to Sender." The pain ran so deep that even after Joan's husband Edgar took his own life in 1987, Johnny still refused to speak to her. When Johnny passed away in 2005, the two had not spoken in nearly 20 years. This betrayal remained one of the deepest wounds of Johnny Carson's professional life. A painful reminder that even those closest to you can deliver the sharpest cuts. 8. Wayne Newton's backstage threat, 1980. While most explosive moments on The Tonight Show happened in front of the cameras, one of the most serious confrontations took place behind closed doors. By 1980, Wayne Newton had become a frequent target of Johnny Carson's monologue jokes. Johnny loved poking fun at Newton's flashy Las Vegas image, his perfectly coiffed hair, and his overly dramatic singing style. What started as lighthearted ribbing slowly turned into something that deeply bothered Newton. One afternoon, Wayne Newton showed up unannounced at NBC Studios in Burbank. He bypassed security, stormed down the hallway, and barged straight into Johnny Carson's private office. According to multiple crew members who witnessed the aftermath, Newton was visibly furious. He pointed at Johnny and said angrily, "Those jokes about me stop right now, or I will kick your ass." The room went dead silent. Johnny, who was sitting at his desk reviewing scripts, looked up calmly but with steel in his eyes. He didn't raise his voice. He simply stared at Newton until the singer left the office. The threat was taken extremely seriously. Johnny immediately called NBC security and issued a permanent lifetime ban on Wayne Newton from The Tonight Show premises. From that day forward, Newton was not allowed anywhere near the studio. Security was even instructed to escort him off the lot if he ever tried to enter. Rumors quickly spread around Hollywood that Newton had connections to questionable figures in Las Vegas, and that the threats against his family had made him extremely sensitive to any jokes about his image. Some insiders claim Newton was genuinely scared for his safety at the time, which explained his aggressive reaction. Johnny never publicly spoke about the incident in detail, but he made his feelings clear to his staff. "I can take a joke, I can't take a threat." For the rest of his career, Johnny rarely mentioned Wayne Newton again. The ban remained in effect until Johnny retired in 1992. It became one of the most famous, invisible bans in late-night television history, a powerful reminder that while Johnny Carson loved comedy, he had zero tolerance for intimidation. 9. Uri Geller gets exposed on national television. Johnny Carson had a secret passion, magic. Before becoming a talk show host, he worked as a professional magician. So when self-proclaimed psychic Uri Geller, famous for bending spoons with his mind, was booked on the show in 1973, Johnny saw a golden opportunity. What most viewers didn't know was that Johnny had secretly collaborated with famous skeptic James Randi to set up a proper test. All the spoons, keys, and sealed envelopes were provided and controlled by the Tonight Show team. Geller had no chance to tamper with anything. The segment began with high anticipation. Geller, confident and charismatic, sat across from Johnny. But as soon as the test started, things went south quickly. Geller pressed metal objects against his forehead, closed his eyes dramatically, and nothing happened. The spoons refused to bend. The sealed drawings remained unchanged. Geller grew increasingly flustered, blaming negative energy in the studio and even the lights. Johnny, trying to suppress a smile, watched with growing amusement. When Geller failed for the third time, Johnny leaned forward with a cold, knowing smile and said, "Well, we'll give you as much time as you need in the next life." The audience erupted in laughter. Geller's face turned bright red. The psychic superstar had been publicly embarrassed on national television. Backstage, the mood was electric. Crew members later said Johnny was genuinely satisfied. He had always disliked people who claimed supernatural powers for profit. He told his producer afterward, "We just exposed him as a fraud and made him even more famous." Great. Following the incident, Johnny instituted a new policy. Any guest claiming paranormal abilities had to use only props supplied by The Tonight Show. This effectively banned most psychics from appearing for years. Uri Geller, however, turned the failure into a career boost, claiming Johnny and NBC had used negative energy to sabotage him. The clip remains one of the most watched debunking moments in television history. Johnny's dry comment years later summed it up perfectly. I bent over backwards to help him, and he still couldn't bend a spoon. 10. Bob Hope turns The Tonight Show into an infomercial, 1978. By 1978, Bob Hope was a living legend, one of the most beloved entertainers in America. But when he appeared on The Tonight Show that year, he committed what Johnny Carson considered one of the biggest sins possible. He treated the show like his personal commercial platform. Bob Hope didn't come alone. His team brought a thick binder full of pre-written jokes, suggested questions, camera angles, and, most importantly, multiple product endorsements. From the moment he sat down, Hope barely looked at Johnny. Instead, he kept glancing at his cue cards and steering every answer towards sponsor mentions. Within the first 7 minutes, Hope managed to plug 3 different sponsors. Johnny's famous pencil tapping began slow, then rapidly turned into an angry machine gun rhythm, a clear sign that he was reaching his limit. The final straw came when Hope tried to squeeze in yet another sponsor plug during what should have been a casual conversation. Johnny sat there with a tight smile, but his eyes had gone cold. He later told his producer, Fred de Cordova, backstage, "I'm not hosting a talk show anymore. I'm hosting a goddamn infomercial." What made it worse was that Bob Hope barely interacted with Johnny at all. He delivered his prepared material like a stand-up routine, treating Johnny more like a prop than a co-host. For a man who prided himself on sharp, spontaneous wit and genuine conversation, this was the ultimate disrespect. After the show, Johnny was visibly irritated. He told his writing staff, "If I wanted to read commercials, I would have stayed in radio." From that night onward, the invitations to Bob Hope became fewer and farther between. Johnny never made a public scene or issued an official ban, but the message was clear. Bob Hope was slowly being phased out. By the early 1980s, Hope had essentially disappeared from The Tonight Show. Years later, Johnny admitted in a private conversation that Bob Hope's appearance was one of the most disrespectful experiences he'd ever had as a host. "He didn't come to be interviewed," Johnny said. "He came to sell, and he expected me to help him do it." In Johnny Carson's world, turning his beloved show into a commercial was the ultimate betrayal of the format he had spent decades perfecting. It was a quiet but firm reminder. On The Tonight Show, even legends had to play by Johnny's rule, and there you have it, the 10 most insane moments when Johnny Carson, the undisputed king of composure, completely lost his cool. From a monkey using his head as a bathroom, to a panther nearly turning him into lunch, to being betrayed by his own protégé and threatened by a Vegas legend. These were the rare nights when America's coolest host finally reached his breaking point. What's fascinating is how even the smallest things could push Johnny over the edge. Disrespect, chaos, or someone trying to hijack his show. The man who made a career out of staying calm had very clear boundaries, and once you crossed them, there was no coming back. Now I want to hear from you. Which of these 10 moments do you think was the most shocking? Was it the monkey incident, Madonna's Wild Death's Takeover, or the heartbreaking Betrayal by Joan Rivers? Drop your number in the comments and tell me why. And here's a spicy question for you. Do you think Johnny was too harsh with some of these guests? Should he have given Chevy Chase or Wayne Newton a second chance? Or was he right to protect his show and his dignity with lifetime bans? Some people say Johnny was too sensitive. Others say he was simply maintaining standards in an industry that was slowly losing them. What do you think? Let's get a real debate going in the comments. If this video shocked you even half as much as these moments shocked Johnny, make sure to hit that like button. If you're a true fan of classic television and behind-the-scenes Hollywood stories, please share this video with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to Hollywood Files and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our next deep dive into television's most legendary moments. In our next video, we're going the opposite direction. We'll be looking at the guests who made Johnny laugh so hard he could barely breathe. Until then, stay classy, stay curious, and remember, even legends have their limits. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.